It was just an ordinary day when Alice received a phone call from her childhood friend, Samantha. Samantha was in a panic and needed Alice's help. She had been experiencing strange occurrences in her home and was convinced that her house was haunted. Alice had always been a skeptic of the supernatural, but she couldn't deny the feeling of dread that had settled in the pit of her stomach as she walked into Samantha's house. The air was thick and heavy, and there was a feeling of malevolence that hung over everything. As they made their way through the house, Alice couldn't help but feel as though they were being watched. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end, and she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. When they entered Samantha's bedroom, the feeling only intensified. Samantha explained to Alice that she had been waking up in the middle of the night to find her dresser drawers open and her clothes scattered on the floor. She also said that she had been hearing strange noises, like whispers and footsteps, when she was alone in the house. Alice decided to set up a camera to try and capture some of the activity. They both went to bed that night, hoping that something would happen. Sure enough, in the middle of the night, they were awakened by a loud banging noise. Alice quickly checked the camera footage and was shocked to see a figure standing at the end of Samantha's bed. The figure was shadowy and indistinct, but there was something about it that made Alice's blood run cold. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was staring right at her. As they continued to capture more footage, the activity became more intense. Objects would move on their own, strange noises filled the house, and the air would suddenly turn cold. One night, as Alice and Samantha were sitting in the living room, they heard a blood-curdling scream coming from upstairs. They rushed up to Samantha's bedroom, and what they saw chilled them to the bone. The room was in disarray, the dresser drawers were open, and the clothes were scattered on the floor. But what really terrified them was the figure standing in the corner. It was no longer shadowy and indistinct, but a solid, tangible presence. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and it let out a low, menacing growl. Alice and Samantha tried to leave the room, but the door wouldn't budge. They were trapped. As the figure advanced on them, Alice could feel its malevolent energy washing over her. She was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or scream. But then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, and the room was filled with an eerie silence. Alice and Samantha were finally able to leave the room, but they both knew that they would never be the same again. The experience had changed them forever, and they knew that the malevolent spirit was still lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next victim. As Alice and Samantha delved deeper into the mystery of the haunted house, they started to realize that they were in way over their heads. The paranormal activity that they had captured on camera was just the beginning. It seemed as though the spirit that was haunting the house was becoming more and more aggressive. One night, as they were going through the footage, they noticed something that they had missed before. In the corner of the screen, they saw a figure standing in the hallway outside Samantha's bedroom. It was difficult to make out, but it looked like a young girl. Alice and Samantha were horrified. They couldn't believe that they had missed this before. They were convinced that the spirit was becoming more powerful and that they were in danger. Things only got worse from there. They started hearing strange noises throughout the house, like whispers and footsteps. They saw shadowy figures moving through the rooms, and they could feel a cold presence following them wherever they went.
One night, as they were sleeping, they were awakened by the sound of a young girl's laughter. When they opened their eyes, they saw the figure of a young girl standing at the end of the bed. Her eyes were black, and her mouth was twisted into a sinister grin. Alice and Samantha tried to scream, but they couldn't make a sound. They were paralyzed with fear as the figure slowly moved closer and closer to them. It was as though they were trapped in a nightmare. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the figure disappeared. Alice and Samantha were gasping for air, covered in sweat. They knew that they couldn't stay in the house any longer. They immediately called in a team of paranormal investigators, who were shocked by the intensity of the activity in the house. They tried to communicate with the spirit, but it seemed as though it was too powerful. In the end, Alice and Samantha had no choice but to leave the house. They never went back, and they never spoke about the experience again. But they both knew that the spirit was still there, waiting for its next victim.